Hello and welcome to The Breakdown. You're on ThePapare.com. We're looking back at the weekend that was in the Dialogue Rugby League. Just a couple more weekends to go, and what a topsy-turvy weekend it was. Some outstanding results, some great upsets as well. Let's talk about those. Let's talk about last week's results. We had CHNFC who threatened to beat Kandy, and they did exactly that, 33 points to 17. One of the most lackluster displays by Kandy. We'll talk about that a little later. Army Sports Club 27 over Air Forces 15, a convincing win there. CRNFC, a last gasp victory for them over Navy, 23 points to 20. And Havelocks managed to beat a fighting Police, 35 points to 26. The scoreline not really reflecting how close that game was. Let's look at our first match at the Racecourse. CHNFC with Kandy travelling down. Kandy having suffered a loss a little while earlier in the tournament, and that's not familiar territory for them. But CHNFC was surprisingly confident going into this game, and you could see exactly why they were confident, because it looked like they had Kandy's number. Their halves combination absolutely out of this world. Sudham Suryarachi, probably the best scrum half in the competition so far. Samuel Madhuwanta also, when he plays at fly half, he plays well. When he plays at full black, he plays well. And some outstanding decision making, and he pegs the team back so much that it leaves a lot of work for the opposition to do to get into an attacking position. And by the time they get into that attacking position, they're too fagged out to actually execute and finish off moves. And that's what Samuel Madhuwanta brings to the party, and that's exactly what he was able to do on Saturday as well. An outstanding performance from CH. It wasn't a spectacular performance, but you don't need to be spectacular to beat Kandy. You actually have to be the opposite. You have to be dour, and you have to maybe restrict the game, constrict their ability to play ball. And Kandy, I think, are suffering a little bit from the lack of depth, because you would think that looking at that Kandy squad that they have more than enough depth, but with Bhuvaneka Udangamu and Dhanushka Ranjan, the season's top try scorers, out for this game through injury, it looked very much like they have to call upon a few players who might need a little bit more quality to adjust to this Kandy system. So that showed a bit of vulnerability for Kandy, and I think that will leave Havelocks licking their chops come the next couple of weeks. Let's look at our next game, CRNFC versus Navy. That was going to be a pitched battle. Navy always liked to come to Longdon Place, and they did very well in that game. They went into an early lead as well, and towards the end it was 20-all with the crowd at the edge of their seats. And in the end it was Sarinder Ratwatu who came through and managed to knock over a penalty to take CRNFC from 23 points to 20. And that was how the score finished up at the end. Discipline once again letting Navy down, unfortunately for them, but CRNFC continuing their winning ways. It wasn't a convincing win by any stretch, but still they would be happy for coming away with that win. They really need to go back home and work a bit on their defense though, and Navy will count themselves unlucky that they didn't manage to win this game. Let's look at our game on Sunday. We had a game under lights with Havelocks taking on Police, and that game was much closer than the scoreline suggests. Havelocks were in that game, and Police were right in it as well, right up to the end. But unfortunately for them, a couple of soft tries conceded by Police made sure that Havelocks managed to run away with it in the end. Penalties galore from both teams, and both coaches will be tearing their hair out. Some controversial refereeing decisions in that game as well. But nevertheless, Police will count themselves lucky that they managed to get as close as they did at one stage, but their discipline just letting them down in the end. The courts have lifted the restriction on the foreign players, which meant that Emosi Vunivosa was available for selection, but not having played rugby for so long, he wasn't able to make the kind of impact that Police hoped that he would be able to make. Erosion Silva running some brilliant angles to score probably what was a try of the game, and Shanaka Amarasinghe replying with a try of his own, which was absolutely outstanding. So some good back play, some good individual play, but I think both these teams need to get a little bit more cohesive if they're going to really threaten the teams above them on the table. Let's look at our stats, courtesy of stats.thepapare.com, all the numbers from the week that has gone by, and we'll start with the leaderboard, of course. And Havelocks have, for the first time this season, moved up to number 1 on the table as a result of that loss of Kandy in against CH, and their win, a bonus point win against Police. So 64 points, and they've put a bit of daylight between themselves and Kandy. 3 points is the gap so far, but Kandy will be hoping to try and make that up, because they didn't get the losing bonus point against CHNFC either. That was a big blow for them. CHNFC, as a result of that win, moving to within 10 points of the defending champions. They're on 51 points. They do have a chance to try and make make it up to second place on the table as well, but that would require other results to go their way, and that may be a little unlikely. CRNFC is still hanging on to that fourth place position, desperate to try and get into the playoffs, to try and see whether they can come from behind and maybe get second, maybe third place. But at the moment, their real intent has to be hang on and consolidate that number 4 position. Army Sports Club will be knocking on the door of that number 4 as well. They will be deserved fourth place playoff winners if they manage to get to that position. But Army at the moment 8 points behind CRNFC, and that will be a tough ask for them given the matches that they have coming up. Navy unfortunately have dropped away from a strong start to the season, and they're in 6th place on 27 points. Police will try to catch them up. They're on 23 points, and Air Force still with that solitary win this season. They've got their 10 points with a big game coming up against CRNFC as well. That is something that they will be expecting to try and win, because CR have been a little vulnerable, so that's something that they will be keeping their sights on as well. But that's in the upcoming weeks. Let's look at the numbers for you on the individual stats sheet. And we have our top try scorers and point scorers. Danushka Ranjan still with 9 tries despite not playing this weekend. Buena Kodangam also 8 tries despite not playing this weekend. But the top point scorer, as a guy who did play this weekend and played brilliantly, was Samuel Madhuvantha. He's burst through and scored 150 points. Thirina Vijay as a result of the 36-point blitz a couple of weeks ago, is still on 141. And despite starting from the bench in the last few games, Tharindra has managed to move himself up to 113 points. So those are top point scorers and try scorers. So coming up to the business end of the tournament, a lot of people are asking us what the super round is. So the super round goes something like this. You divide both segments of the league table, 1 to 4 and 4 to 8, or 5 to 8 rather, and you will have those teams playing each other. So you will have 1 playing 4, 2 plays 3, 5 plays 8, 6 plays 7 in the first round of matches. And then you'd have reverse fixtures in the next round of matches as well. And what happens from that is those teams that play each other will get to carry those points from that super round and add them to the points that they already have on the Dialogue Rugby League leaderboard at this point in time. And whoever has the most points at the end of that will win the Dialogue Rugby League title. So at the moment, Havelocks are on 64 points, and they will add whatever points they get from the next games they play against 2, 3 and 4, and they will add those to that 64. And if Havelocks still have more points than the other teams, then they will win the league. So that's an example of how things will work. It will work exactly the same way in the plate competition as well, and you'll have teams 5, 6, 7 and 8 playing in that exact same format for the Dialogue Rugby League plate competition. Upcoming fixtures, we have Army taking on Police at Ratmalana, and that should be a very interesting game with Police travelling away from their home ground with the wind conditions. Should be a very, very interesting match to watch. CRNFC taking on Kandy. Kandy, after losing to CHNFC over the last week, and travel down to Colombo for the second successive week. Now with the injuries that they have, and with CRNFC slowly building on that terrible start to the second round, who knows whether this might be the one time CRNFC have an opportunity. But Kandy are a team that like to beat CRNFC at Longdon Place, and this should be one match that all the Kandy players will pull their socks up for. So Kandy will be the favourites, but look on the outside chance of an upset there. Then we have Navy taking on Air Force. Navy will be desperate to try and climb a little bit further up the table and make sure that those points add up towards their quest for the plate. And they will be looking to give Air Force a thrashing. But Air Force at Ratmalana with their foreign players as well should be interesting to see whether they will be able to get their second win of the season. Then we have a big game, CHNFC versus Havelocks, and that one is at the Racecourse. So Havelocks playing away from home, and CHNFC returning to the ground where they beat Kandy and beat Kandy convincingly. So let's see whether Adam Gowda in the center of that midfield for CHNFC will make a difference. He did so against Kandy, manages to draw a lot of defenders and make sure he passes it out to the talent outside him. Hiranta Pereira, Nishant Pereira, these are the guys that you have to look out for to finish the good work that Gowda starts. And with Samuel Madhuvantha in the form that he is, you'll need guys like Riza Mubarak to be in on absolute top form, and Niroshan Fernando as well, to make sure that they keep this CHNFC side at bay. that gives us a couple of mouth-watering fixtures coming up in the next week. And don't forget to join us on ThePapare.com for all the live action exclusively on ThePapare.com and Dialogue TV. Join me on the breakdown next week as we look back at these fixtures.